On this vote, the yeas are 243, the nays are 177. The bill has passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Thank you. What purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I present a privileged report for printing under the rule.
Okay. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Report to accompany H.R. 2596, a bill making appropriations for Departments of Commerce and Justice and Science and related agencies for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2012, and for other purposes.
Referred to the evening calendar and ordered printed. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 21, points of order are reserved. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the Chair will postpone further proceedings today on motions to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote of the yeas and nays are ordered, or on which the vote incurs objection under Clause 6 of Rule 20. Recorded votes on postponed questions will be taken later. What purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass H.J. Res. 66.
Clerk will report the title of the joint resolution.
House Joint Resolution 66, joint resolution approving the renewal of import restrictions contained in the Burmese Freedom and Democracy Act of 2003.
Does the gentleman mean to call up the bill as amended?
Is it amended? The bill amended? No, the bill's not been amended. Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. The bill has been amended as filed.
Great. We have amended text. Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Boustay, and the gentleman from Washington, Mr. McDermott, will each control 20 minutes. House will be in order. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield such time as I might consume. I ask for unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend their remarks and exclude extraneous material on the bill under consideration. Mr. Speaker,
So ordered.
Mr. Speaker, as an original co-sponsor of this bill, I rise in strong support of H.J. Res. 66, which would continue the imposition of sanctions against the repressive regime in Burma for another year. The purpose of imposing sanctions against Burma is to promote democracy and respect for human rights and improve living conditions for the Burmese people. Unfortunately, the ruling junta is still dedicated to working against, not toward, those objectives. For that reason, I am in favor of continuing our practice of extending import sanctions against Burma for another year. Burma's regime is one of the world's most repressive and continues to oppress democratic movements and humanitarianism. On November 7th, 2010, the military junta, known ironically as the State Peace and Development Council, or SPDC, held an election for the first time in 20 years. However, while elections are usually considered a step towards democracy, in this case, it was actually a step backwards. These elections were not transparent, inclusive, or credible. Notably, Burma's leading pro-democracy party, the National League for Democracy, as well as others, were not allowed to participate in the elections. And by ensuring that most candidates were former high-ranking government and military officials, the election victory by the government-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party simply means that the military junta remained in control with a veneer of an election to simply justify itself. Shortly following the elections, Aung San Suu Kyi, freedom fighter, Nobel Peace Prize recipient, and Congressional Gold Medal winner, and General Secretary of the NLD, was finally released after having been falsely detained for 15 of the past 21 years. However, in a move highlighting how little things have changed in Burma, the junta recently warned Suu Kyi that there may be chaos and riots if she continues on her cross-country tour to meet with supporters. The government also chided Suu Kyi and the NLD for their political work and threatened that they should stop doing so to avert unnecessary consequences. On Suu Kyi's last tour in 2003, she was attacked by a pro-government mob that killed many of her followers and landed her under house arrest for the next 7 years. In short, the recent election does not represent any kind of shift in domestic Burmese politics. In fact, the political situation in Burma and for the Burmese people has not changed at all. The human rights situation is no better. The State Department Human Rights Report on Burma, echoed by the March United Nations Human Rights Council resolution, cites a laundry list of grave human rights violations that are simply appalling. According to the State Department, this repugnant regime in which military officers wield ultimate authority at every level of government continues to use forced labor, denies participation in any democratic processes, and commits extrajudicial killings. The regime detains civic activists indefinitely and without charge, and it engages in harassment, abuse, and detention of human rights and pro-democracy activists. The regime is rumored to hold an estimated 2,100 political prisoners. Ethnic violence inflicted by the army is also rife. There have been recent reports of renewed fighting in the northern Burmese province of Kachin between the government and ethnic minority villagers, resulting in reportedly up to 20,000 refugees. Not only have these people been driven from their homes and many killed, there have also been widespread reports of the rape of women and children. What have we been doing on our end? Well, I'm pleased that this Congress amplified our sanctions 3 years ago to eliminate trade in jewelry containing Burmese rubies and jadeite, even if the jewelry was made in and exported from a third country. The expansion was designed to bring about multilateral pressure on the regime through the United Nations and the World Trade Organization, similar to successful legislation on conflict diamonds. I urge similar campaigns against Burmese rubies and jadeite at the UN and WTO. I must be clear that I generally view import sanctions with great skepticism. However, if there is a right way to impose sanctions, I think that these Burma sanctions are crafted to maximize the ability to effect change. For example, they require the administration to issue annual reports on Burma that include findings on whether U.S. national security, economic, and foreign policy interests are being served so that we can make an informed decision. Perhaps the most critical aspect of the Burma sanctions program is that they require us to redirect our attention every summer to the question of whether these sanctions should be continued. Because they are not self-executing, we here in Congress must consider this issue and vote to continue them on an annual basis. I continue to believe that our greatest hope for effecting real change in Burma is multilateralism. I'm therefore disappointed that there has not been sufficient multilateral pressure against this regime. I strongly urge the administration to put more pressure on our trading partners to place the leaders of this regime under targeted economic pressure that denies them access to personal wealth and sources of revenue. I call on the United Nations, Burma's Southeast Asian neighbors, and ASEAN, and the People's Republic of China to step up engagement considerably. I support this resolution because it increases our chances to bring about this multilateral effort to promote democracy and end the long-time suffering of the Burmese people. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. What purpose does the gentleman from Washington rise?
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Does the gentleman claim time in opposition? Does the gentleman claim position? The gentleman's recognized.
You already divided the time, didn't you?
The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume. I rise in strong support of the House Joint Resolution 66, a measure to renew the ban on imports from Burma. Over the past 23 years, Burma's authoritarian regime has detained or killed political opponents, waged war against ethnic minorities, and in the process accumulated one of the worst human rights records in modern history. Finally, in 2010, with continued pressure from Congress and the inspiring leadership of the Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, Burma's military junta promised to lay down its arms and clear the way for democracy. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, it was a sham. Parliamentary elections held last November were rife with fraud. Opposition parties were intimidated by the police and banned from offering up candidates. Votes were rigged to provide electoral legitimacy to the existing military rule. Once again, the people of Burma were denied a free and fair opportunity to choose their own leaders. Human rights abuse is widespread and continues to go unprosecuted. Under the guise of a new civilian parliament, it's business as usual for the old regime. In the light of the unchanged political reality in Burma, the renewal of America's ban on Burmese imports could not be more urgent. We must send a message to Burma's new rulers, who turn out to be the same, the old rulers, that empty promises of democratic reform are unacceptable. Now, there are some who will question whether we should maintain our import ban following Burma's election and the former dissolution of the military junta. Even our European allies have begun to rethink their strategy as EU travel and financial restrictions have been lifted on certain officials in the new government. The problem with that approach, Mr. Speaker, is that meaningful reform has yet to take place in Burma. By opening our borders to Burmese imports, we would only strengthen and enrich the same old regime that maintains a stranglehold on civic and family life in Burma. According to the UN, the new government has failed to make any significant progress on land confiscation, forced labor, internal displacement of people, extrajudicial killings, and sexual violence against women. And the Obama administration affirms these views. Burma's sanctions are unique because they have the widespread support of the Burmese people. Aung San Suu Kyi herself recently said, quote, "The sanctions must remain in place," close quote, end quote, "should only be lifted when something has changed here," close quote. Aung San Suu Kyi's political party, the National League of Democracy, also confirmed its view that American sanctions do not hurt the public at large, and that's a quote, "do not hurt the public at large," as the true target in Burma's undemocratic leadership. In response, true to form, the so-called new government warned publicly that Suu Kyi and members of her party would meet, and I quote, "tragic ends" if they continue to call for international sanctions. In passing H.R. 66 and reauthorizing the Bloc Burmese Jade Act of 2008, Congress will send a clear message of support to the people of Burma in their aspirations for true democracy and a lasting peace. Until there is meaningful reform in Burma, Mr. Speaker, we must keep steadfast in our support of the Burmese people and maintain the pressure on Burma's undemocratic rulers. I urge my colleagues to pass House Joint Resolution 66, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. What purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm now pleased to yield 2.5 minutes to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Pitts.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of this important resolution to renew sanctions against the brutal military dictators in Burma. The plight facing the people of Burma remains terrible. The ruling party in Burma continues to use the rule of law and government apparatus to deprive minority groups of their human rights and their lives, and it does so with impunity. The regime's human rights violations continue to be horrific. The regime in Burma is responsible for committing virtually every human rights violation imaginable. The atrocities perpetrated by the regime range from the use of rape as a weapon of terror, the recruitment of child soldiers, ethnic cleansing, forced labor, political detention, and the list goes on. I've received first-hand reports in my office detailing the dictatorship's use of ethnic minorities as human landmine sweepers. Over 1 million refugees and 500,000 internally displaced peoples have been forced to flee their homes, and 750,000 of the country's inhabitants remain stateless. Indicative of the times, the regime has now turned to censorship, of the Internet, as well as individual email accounts and social networking sites to block the dissemination of evidence related to the atrocities. The Burmese government must realize that such attempts to hide its record of abuse, as well as its dishonest elections and mock constitutional reforms, cannot cover up their war against their own people. Such a record only demonstrates the regime's illegitimacy. I call on the administration to renew its efforts in fulfilling the Burmese Freedom and Democracy Act of 2003, and particularly the provision which requires our government to craft a multilateral sanctions regime against Burma. By renewing these sanctions, Congress is making our nation's concern for human rights paramount in our foreign relations interest. The administration should do the same. The people of Burma must know that we stand with them. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Washington.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Crowley, such time as he may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I thank my friend from Washington for yielding me such time. And, Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of House Joint Resolution 66. This measure is a sign of how we can all work together on foreign policy when we put our minds to it. I want to acknowledge the bipartisan support for human rights in Burma, both here in the House as well as in the Senate. The Burmese Freedom and Democracy Act and the Burmese Jade Act together have prevented hundreds of millions of dollars from getting into the hands of the Burmese military apparatus. By passing these bills into law and renewing them this year, we have ensured that 65 million people of Burma see us, the United States, as an ally in their struggle for human rights. And we have helped send a signal to others around the world that the United States will not turn a blind eye to crimes against humanity. There is no question that Burma is ruled by one of the world's most brutal governments. Over the past year, we have seen ongoing abuses committed by the Burmese military, including rapes, torture, and killings. Just last week, Human Rights Watch released a report documenting how villagers are subjected to summary executions, torture, and being used as human shields during conflict. And women in Burma live in constant fear of rapes by soldiers of their own military. For the leaders of the Burmese military, rape is a tactic of war, one used to torment and to intimidate entire populations, not just their immediate victims. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, on July 5th, the Burmese soldiers carried out 4 more rapes against ethnic civilians. The innocent victims were of all different ages, and one of those victims was as young as 12 years of age. That's right, a 12-year-old girl was raped by a member of the Burmese military. As a result of thousands of brutal rapes and other abuses, Burmese villagers continue to flee their homes into the jungle, where they live as refugees or internally displaced people. As bad as these abuses are, this bill is not only about stopping human rights abuses. We must remember that the inspiration for this measure came from the remarkable woman, Nobel Peace Prize recipient Aung San Suu Kyi. She led her political party to victory in Burma's last free and fair election in 1990. Many people call her the Nelson Mandela of Burma, and the U.S. House of Representatives voted to award her the Congressional Gold Medal. Up until last November, she was also the world's only imprisoned Nobel Peace Prize recipient. And today, even though she is no longer under formal house arrest, the military has threatened her over and over again in an attempt to intimidate her into silence. She has called on the people throughout the world to take action, saying, and I quote, "Please use your liberty to promote ours," end quote. She and the democracy movement in Burma have also called for us to maintain sanctions on Burma. This is similar to how the African National Congress, led by Nelson Mandela, called for sanctions on South Africa in the 1980s. Passing this bill isn't all we must do. I want to urge the administration to fully implement the Burmese Freedom and Democracy Act and block Burmese Jade Act. The Jade Act gives the administration tools to implement tough bilateral financial sanctions on members of the Burmese regime and its cronies, and we should proceed as soon as possible. It's important to remember that the United States isn't the only country that has imposed sanctions on Burma. This is not a bilateral effort, it is a multilateral effort. While every country has different types of sanctions, those that have taken action include Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the European Union, and more. We should be doing all we can to expand these sanctions into an even greater multilateral effort. That's why in the Burmese Jade Act we asked the President to appoint an envoy to work internationally on increasing pressure on the Burmese regime. Now that this envoy has been nominated, I urge our colleagues in the Senate to confirm him without haste, and I hope he gets to work right away on strengthening and implementing multilateral pressure. I also believe the administration should work proactively to establish an international investigation into crimes against humanity committed by the Burmese military. The Burmese leadership is clearly carrying out crimes against humanity. The sooner these abuses are investigated, the sooner they will end. Mr. Speaker, this bill is the right thing to do. I stand in strong support of this bill, and I urge its immediate adoption, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Louisiana.
I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Washington.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Holt, the 3 minutes, 4 minutes,
The gentleman is recognized for
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my friend from Washington, and I rise in support of this resolution. When I first visited Burma decades ago, I learned what a difference a misguided regime can make. Burma had been a vibrant country known as the Rice Bowl of Asia. Burma had a rich history, fertile land, abundant resources, and a productive population. In the years following the coup in the early 1960s, the authoritarian regime impoverished the nation and brutalized its people, a pattern that persists today. For more than 20 years, the United States government has sought to use its influence to try to create conditions for a restoration of democracy and the rule of law in Burma. One tool has been the use of sanctions. The Burmese Freedom and Democracy Act was signed into law 8 years ago this month, and it requires the President to impose a ban on the import of products from Burma. It blocks U.S. support for loans from international financial institutions and freezes the assets of and bans visas for key members of the military junta that has imposed its will on the Burmese people for decades. I believe these sanctions should be renewed because there is evidence they are working. Last November, Burmese elections were clearly illegitimate and not a free expression of the will of the Burmese people. But the continuing international pressure on and scrutiny of the junta may be having some tangible effects. As the International Crisis Group noted earlier this year, 2 senior junta leaders have resigned since the elections, and there's some evidence that pressure has eased on some of the minority ethnic groups in the country. Burma's greatest human rights figure, Aung San Suu Kyi, told the Australian Broadcasting Network yesterday that continued use of targeted sanctions is important. Quote, "I think it's much better to have very, very clear targets," she said, and continued, quote, "I do not think it's really very reasonable just to say, we want an improvement in human rights in your human rights record. It's too vague. The release of political prisoners, the inclusion of all in the political process, the rule of law, and so on. Pick out the important points and say, well, if you want sanctions removed, you've got to do these." Mr. Speaker, we need to continue standing with Aung San Suu Kyi and all of the freedom-seeking Burmese. This resolution gives us a chance to do that, which is why I urge my colleagues to join us in supporting this resolution. And I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inquire as to whether or not the gentleman from Georgia has any, gentleman from Washington has any other members wishing to speak on this.
No, and I would only say that this bill expires on the 26th of July, so we need to act on it quickly, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Washington yields his time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm in full agreement. We need to move and pass this, and I think we'll get it passed. I must say to the gentleman from Washington, at least we have a trade bill on the floor. I hope there are many more to come. We're waiting for the President to send the 3 pending agreements to us so that we can move forward on these and embark on a very aggressive trade agenda. And with that, I will yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Joint Resolution 66 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, 2/3 being affirmative, the rules are suspended and joint resolution is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Chair will entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. Gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition for one minute.
Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute?
Without objections, you may address the House for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, 2 things come from a town called Kiln, Mississippi. That's a famous NFL quarterback, and Lazy Magnolia beer. We know Brett's story, but let me tell you about Lazy Magnolia. One Christmas, Leslie Henderson bought her husband Mark a homebrew kit. The 2 engineers started brewing beer and eventually turned their hobby into a business. We can fix our faltering economy by giving small business owners more responsibility. H.R. 1236, the Small Brew Act, does that, allowing a much-needed tax cut to our small brewers. By lowering the tax on the beer they produce, these companies will have more revenue to invest in maintaining and hiring employees. This legislation therefore promises to create over 4,000 jobs. On that Christmas a few years ago, Lazy Magnolia Beer had no employees. Today it provides jobs to about 20 people in Hancock County. That, my friends, is an American success story. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Are there further requests for 1-minute speeches? Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5, 2011, the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Elmers, is recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the majority.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection. So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have a wonderful group of women who are going to come together and discuss the issues at hand right now in Washington and across America, as we all are so concerned with what is happening to our economy. Those of you out there are up late at night wondering how you're going to be paying that mortgage, wondering how the car payment is going to be made, and which payments you'll make this month and which payments you may have to put off for another time. We're all doing it. We might as well all admit it. And it's time to come together for solutions and answers. And we, as GOP women in Congress, know how important these issues are. We are the women that are taking care of our children, we're taking care of our households, we're taking care of our parents and their health care needs, and we're watching out for our neighbors to make sure that they're okay. And we continue on this path. We simply cannot run on this path of unsustainable spending and financial uncertainty. We need jobs back in this country. There are those who have jobs and are worried if they're going to be able to keep them. And yet there are others who have lost their jobs and wonder if they'll be able to find another job. We understand this. We understand that it's affecting all of our households, and we're going to come together and discuss these very important issues. And before we get started, I'm just going to pass along to you one of the greatest quotes that I think hits home to all of us from Ronald Reagan. All great change in America begins at the dinner table. How true is that? We all know, now many of our households, we don't all eat dinner together anymore like we used to. When I was growing up, dinner time was a specified time, and we all came together, and if you didn't get to the table, you didn't eat. But today, we're all on different schedules, but that dinner table still remains. And we still sit there and we discuss these issues with our spouses. My husband is a doctor. Brent is a surgeon. He practices in Dunn, North Carolina. We have a son, Ben, who's 16. I'm worried about his future. I'm worried about my husband's practice because he is suffering, realizing that the volume of patients he once was seeing has decreased. That's out of fear, and that's out of the healthcare system that we have created now. So as we move forward, I'm going to be introducing to you some of the greatest women that I have had the honor of getting to know here in D.C. I have many friends back home, but these ladies are my family here. And I'm going to start off with my esteemed colleague from North Carolina, Ms. Sue Myrick. And she has been a mentor to me, but mostly a friend. And I thank you, Sue, for coming today and sharing your thoughts.
Well, it's my honor to be here, and I thank you for yielding me the time. You know, as you said, we have a lot of colleagues here, and most of us share the same ideas relative to what we're about. You mentioned and are talking there about the dinner table and women being financial planners. We do the budget. We're the ones that take care of our families. As you said, we're the health care providers, all of that. But, you know, you mentioned your husband's in business, but I also am a former small business owner. And when I look at what's happening today, there are so many businesses. I think there are like 400 new businesses every day that are started by women in this country. And when I talk to business owners at home, they say to me, you know, I'm really concerned about the fact that I could expand my business, but I'm afraid to because of the uncertainty that's out there. I don't know what policies are coming down. I don't know what kind of health care costs I'm going to have. I don't know what tax policies and what, if I hire somebody, it's going to cost me to retain that employee. I don't want to go out and hire them and train them and then have to turn right around and, you know, maybe let them go because I can't afford to keep them. And so the policies that we're working on, and all the women in Congress on our side of the aisle that really care about these issues, are to make sure that we put policies in place that help and promote those small businesses to exist, because they hire most of the people in the country. Most of the jobs are provided by small business, and it's really important. I also, from another standpoint, used to be the mayor of Charlotte. Unfortunately, the first and only female mayor. I wish somebody else would run on the female side, but that's beside the point. What I wanted to say is that we had to operate with a balanced budget. Very simple, you know, and you can do it. And we've been talking this week and actually passed the bill yesterday of cut, cap, and balance. I mean, what a novel idea. It's the way all of us live all the time. It's how we do our business. And there's no reason the federal government, like the 49 states that balance their budget, can't be living under a balanced budget. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we have to make some hard decisions, but the bottom line in all of that is we can do it. And if we have the resolve, the American people want us to do it. There's no such thing as government money. It's all the taxpayers who send their money up here to Washington. That's what we're spending, and we've been spending too much of it. So I'm encouraged by the fact that we really did have a vote on that bill yesterday that says, you know, we're going to live within our means, we're going to do what you do every day, and that we as women can have a voice in that, and we'll continue to have a voice in that. And I thank you so much for putting this together so we have a chance to express that to the American people.
Thank you so much. I yield now to Ms. Herrera Butler from Washington. Thank you so much for coming together. She is one of my fellow freshmen, and we have gotten to be good friends.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. You know, this is one of the most, I'd say, monumental times we faced as a nation. We are right now making decisions that are not just going to impact those of us here today, but our children and our children's children. I am so proud to be a part of this body that passed a bipartisan solution to our budgeting problems just yesterday. We passed, like the gentlelady spoke about, a balanced budget amendment. You know, I know there's a lot of controversy happening right now, and it's frustrating to watch people posture here in Washington, D.C. Folks back home are sending me emails, and they're calling me saying, can you just get some solutions done, Washington? And, you know, my response is I completely agree. It is frustrating to watch partisan bickering taking place. And I kind of smile to myself and I think, just put more women in charge? Because we're going to fight for solutions. And that's what we're here doing today, promoting the solutions that we were able to pass off the floor just yesterday, solutions that require this House, this body, not to spend more money than it has coming in. You know, it shouldn't be a radical concept. It shouldn't be controversial in the least. Every mother watching this, every mother in America, daughter, sister, aunt, understands you cannot spend more money each month than you have coming in. You know, women in the household tend to be the decision makers when it comes to finances, to health care, to education, to parental, you know, taking care of older parents or family. Women tend to be those decision makers, which gives us a solution-oriented bent, which is why we're here today saying we are willing to work with anybody who puts a plan on paper to move this country forward that reduces government overspending. Again, very simple. Don't spend more than you have coming in every month. That is a plan to economic prosperity. Don't treat small business owners, many of whom are women. Don't treat small business owners as your personal piggy bank. You can't just go back to the cash cow every time you want to spend more money. You know, it's ironic. Margaret Thatcher, in fact, I saw this quote, I think it was yesterday, basically said, and I'm going to paraphrase her a little loosely, but she said, the problem with socialists is eventually they run out of other people's money. And that's the reality. Women understand you just can't live beyond your means for sustained amounts of time. And it's, you know, for too long, people of both parties, right, Republicans and Democrats, overspent. Both people of both parties in the White House have overspent. We can talk a long time about what got us here, but that's not going to get us out of the mess. What we need now is our solutions. And the solution that was passed yesterday, again, a bipartisan solution to cut the overspending, cap future growth of government, and balance our budget is a solution that's going to get our country on a path to prosperity. It's going to tell job creators, keep doing what you do best. Entrepreneurs, keep dreaming, hire more people. Here in my neck of the woods in Southwest Washington, we have double-digit unemployment. Three years plus now of families hurting. Enough is enough. I encourage the Senate, I encourage the White House to come to an agreement, show us something on paper. We're willing to work together and to negotiate. We're all about making a solution happen for the American people. But let's live within our means. It shouldn't be that difficult. So with that, I thank the gentlelady for putting this together. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I yield back.
Thank you so much. And I yield now to my very good friend from Alabama, Ms. Roby, who is the mother of two, and she is wise beyond her years.
Well, I thank you very much for those kind remarks. And again, what an honor and a privilege to be here on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, representing Alabama's 2nd District, but also here just to embrace the very quote that you began with, all great change in America begins at the dinner table, from President Ronald Reagan. And as I sit here and I've been listening to my colleagues, I can't help but reflect back on my time as a child around the dinner table with my parents and my siblings. And I am so grateful for the parents that I have that encourage debate, yet taught me the responsibility that I have as an American and as an individual. And certainly finally, I credit my wonderful parents for the opportunities that I've had to lead me to this place today, to have the privilege of honoring, the privilege and honor of representing Alabama's 2nd District. And this week, this Congress is embarking on a historical path. And we all understand the responsibility that we have, and each of us brings to the table a unique sense as women, as those who pump gas and go to the grocery store and see the rising cost of milk. We bring a perspective to this Congress that I think is vitally important to demonstrate exactly where this country is now. The people that are having to make the choice between whether they're putting food on their table or gas in their pump so that they can get to their job to provide for their family. And so, again, thank you for letting me be part of this. You know, all of us that are here on the floor today, since the day we walked in, particularly this past January, we have been fighting to tighten the belt around the government's belt. Every American has done so in the past several years, and it's time that this federal government does the same. We did it with the continuing resolution. We did it with the House budget resolution, and we've been doing it throughout the appropriations process, and we have done it this week. Our children, my children's children, they deserve a future free of crushing taxes so that they have the same opportunity that I mentioned I had before. They deserve to be free from a life of indebtedness to China. The Cut, Cap, and Balance Act ensures that we fulfill our constitutional obligation to pay our debts. We're at a place right now, you and I could never call up our credit card company and say, hey, credit card company, I've maxed out my card. I don't have any cash to pay you the interest on what I already owe, so could you just increase my credit limit? Can you imagine? Can you imagine going to your husband and saying, I maxed it out, but I need a little bit more, so I'm just going to call the credit card? That's exactly what's going on here. And if we don't insist, just like you and I would in our home, just like our spouses would, just like we would for our children, if we do not insist that there be significant spending reforms where we cut up that credit card and say no more, your child wouldn't change his or her behavior if you just continued to give them more, nor would you change your behavior if your credit card company allowed that kind of action. We should require the same of our federal government as we do in our homes. It is so urgent that we provide the American people with honest solutions, and I believe that we have demonstrated that this week, and I look forward to the next coming weeks as we can do all that we can as Republican women to help turn this tide of spending in this country so that we can save this country for the next generation. It cannot be about the next election. It must be about the next generation. Thank you so much, and I yield back.
I'd now like to yield to my very, very special friend, Ms. Biggert from Illinois, who has been a voice of reason. She is a strong woman here in Congress for us in the GOP conference, and I appreciate all of her remarks, which are always extremely thoughtful.
Thank you. Thank you, and I thank you for doing this. I think that we've got such great women that have come into this Congress in this last term, and are really, you are all moving forward and really, I think, setting the tone for what's going to happen in the future, and I appreciate that. But you know, it is time for America to live within its means, and I got a email from a constituent from Lockport, Illinois recently, and she wrote to me imploring Congress to say no to all personal income tax increases. And she further explains that she's a single mom, and just think of how many single moms are out there having to work to keep their kids clothed and in school and to keep her home going. She said that she is a single mom struggling to keep her home, raise her son, and pay her bills. She says, I cannot pay any more taxes. I will lose everything. And there are so many like that out there. A gentleman from Downers Grove, Illinois, wrote to me and said, it's sad to see the constant disagreement in Washington over almost all issues, including national security, foreign affairs, etc. But the budget must be controlled. This is the hard-earned money of American taxpayers that must be spent wisely. Less is better. We must live on budgets and not be able to borrow whenever we run out of money, as the gentlelady just said. We don't have a credit card. Most people don't have the credit card that they can go and get their limit raised. Neither should we. We have to cut taxes and stop spending. So let's get people back to work so that this country can prosper and be great again. For too long, the government spent the taxpayers into a debt that they cannot afford, and despite trillions in the so-called stimulus, the economy has grown only weaker as a result. So consider these troubling statistics. Our tax burden is approaching the highest levels in our country's history and is expected to rise. Unless we take action now, it could exceed 20% of GDP in just 3 years, a record we've only seen once in 35 years. Similarly, household taxes are excessively high, even in a slow economy. At over $18,000 last year, the average household tax burden has almost doubled in the last 50 years. What's worse is that the interest on our debt for 1 year is equal to the entire budgets of the Department of Labor, Agriculture, and the Veterans Affairs combined. In individual terms, it means that each American's share of our debt is over $46,000. When I think of my family and future generations, this means that my 9 grandchildren would collectively owe over $414,000 if they had to pay their share of our debt today. Before my youngest grandson graduates from college, he would owe $103,000 on our national debt. This is unacceptable. And that's why we took this first step to address the crisis yesterday by passing the Cut, Cap, and Balance Act. And our colleagues across the aisles would argue that this plan goes too far by restricting future borrowing. But the reality is that this bill simply caps spending at the same sustainable rates as past generations, about 20% of GDP, a post-World War II average, no more and no less. Don't we care as much about our children and grandchildren as our parents did? I do, and so do the people who sent us here to Congress. So we need to show our creditors, our competitors, and the American people that we are willing to make the tough choices needed to restore confidence and growth in the United States. And I'm so proud of all the women that are participating in this and are really making a difference and showing that we can move forward and balance our budget and live within our means like families all across America. So I thank you for being here.
Thank you. And to your points, I would just like to refer to this chart right here. As you can see, we have 2 individuals who are talking about how they're going to pay those taxes. And that checkbook right there, with obviously a nice lady's hand filling out that check. And we don't know what it's for, but we all know that feeling. And this actually ran in the Chicago Tribune, May 6th of 2011. It says, financial planners say they're seeing more women becoming the sole decision makers when it comes to the family's finances, as you were speaking. More and more women are taking on the role of their family's chief financial officer. They set the budget, pay the bills, make the grocery list, and can tell you how much it truly costs to run the family. And I believe that the American people, as you do, should be able to know how much it costs to run the country, and we should stick to that budget as well. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.
I'd now like to yield to my good friend who the last time we had a special orders, I just literally watched her because she is a numbers person, and I am always so impressed by that because I am not a numbers person. So thank you to the gentle lady from Kansas. She is, again, just so incredibly smart And I thank you, Lynn Jenkins, for coming today to help us with this effort.
Well, I thank the gentlelady from North Carolina for yielding. I am Lynn Jenkins from the 2nd Congressional District in Kansas, a proud Republican woman, a mother of 2, and a CPA with nearly 20 years of experience helping small businesses, major corporations, and American families budget and return to solvency. You see a family up there in the picture, and I have spent nearly 2 decades working with families across the dinner table to help them chart their way back to prosperity and fiscal responsibility. And I can tell you that if you want to be serious about balancing your budget and returning to solvency, you have to look at both sides of the ledger. You have to look at what you're taking in and what you're spending. You have to look at your assets and your liabilities. And when it comes to spending and liabilities, it seems that in this town there is some consensus that Washington does indeed have a spending problem. The time to rein in this out-of-control, wasteful Washington spending and debt is long overdue. That is why the House has passed a responsible, fact-based budget that will curb federal spending by more than $6 trillion over the next 10 years, and why just yesterday we passed a measure to again cut spending by trillions of dollars and cap any future spending as a part of a deal to grant the President his request to raise the debt ceiling. But it is our assets that make our country truly blessed, because our greatest asset is the strength, the drive, and the ingenuity of the American worker and the American business owner. That is why we need to enhance this asset and therefore increase our revenues in a way that grows the economy. And it is not to hit our small businesses with tax increases or more regulation, but rather to institute these pro-growth policies like House Republicans are doing in our efforts to reform the tax code, to make it fairer and flatter, to increase exports by finally passing the 3 pending trade agreements, increase our energy production, and remove the burdensome regulations that are stifling growth and hiring. You simply can't tax your way out of this mess and into a robust economy. You have to grow your way out of it. You don't have to take my word for it. The President himself agreed with me just last year when he said raising taxes would, and I quote, just take more demand out of the economy and put businesses in a further hole. Balancing our budget is critical to our future, just as it is critical to every business and family across this great country. So it's my hope that the establishment here in Washington can finally see the errors of its ways, make real cuts to this out-of-control spending binge, put hard caps on the attempts to increase spending in the future, and establish some pro-growth policies that will lift us out of this stagnant economy and into prosperity the American people deserve. I yield back.
Thank you so much. And I now yield to my good friend from South Dakota, part of our freshman leadership, part of our freshman class, who has truly shown her leadership. And thank you for coming today, Ms. Noem. I'm very excited to hear your comments.
Oh, thank you. And I thank the gentlelady for leading, or for yielding to me today. I certainly appreciate it. And Mr. Speaker, I rise today not only as a proud Republican woman as well, as my good colleague from Kansas said, but also as a wife and as a mother and as an American concerned about Washington, D.C. spending habits. We not only need a solution to dig ourselves out of the situation that we are in, but we need to make sure that we don't find ourselves back in the same place. We need to make sure that we are putting us on a new fiscal path that certainly addresses the problems that we have in front of us. The frustrating thing about that entire process is that this President has been on the sidelines. You know, certainly we all know the biblical phrase that without a vision the people perish, and that's truly what's happening to America today, is that we don't have a leader who's been willing to step forward and give us a plan to tell us what he truly thinks are the options that are available to us. Instead, that's been left to others to lead, and he's been more than willing to stand on the sidelines and to criticize every single one of those options that have been brought forward. In fact, his original budget, which was proposed in February of this year, failed to even address our most difficult problems. While the Democrat-led Senate voted down his budget unanimously, no one jumped on board because they recognized that under his plan that we doubled our debt in 5 years and tripled it in 10. It certainly wasn't going to be the answer to what we needed to prevent this most predictable financial crisis that we find ourselves in. You know, since then, the executive branch has failed to provide the American people with a solid plan to move forward. During a House Budget Committee hearing, the CBO Director, Douglas Elmendorf, referenced President Obama's revised budget speech by saying this: "We don't estimate speeches. We need much more specificity than was provided in that speech for us to do our analysis." And essentially what he was saying was, we can't score a speech. We don't know what a speech means. Anybody can give a really great speech. What we need is leadership. We need someone to step up to the table, tell us what we need to do to address our problems so we can put it into action. House Republicans have taken this lead. In the looming budget crisis, we've shown time and time again that we're serious about cutting our spending. We're serious about balancing our budget. In January, we passed H.R. 1 that continued funding through 2011, only to have it stalled by the Senate, which in effect essentially delayed any action until it got down to the brink of a government shutdown. In March, we passed our budget plan for fiscal year 2012. We're still waiting more than 800 days for the Senate to pass any kind of anything that resembles a budget. We're doing our work here in the House, but we can't do it alone. We need a willing partner in the President. We need a willing partner in the Senate. Last night, the House again passed yet another plan to get our fiscal house in order. We voted overwhelmingly to support cut, cap, and balance. I supported this plan because my constituents have been calling for weeks, telling me to support serious change, serious spending cuts, and a balanced budget amendment. They realize they can't spend more money than what they have in their households. They want their government to have some common sense. South Dakota families and businesses understand the need to balance a checkbook. Our country, just like our families, can't continue to spend more than it makes. Even my 9-year-old son realizes that. You know, recently he had the chance to come out with me to Washington, D.C., and he wanted to spend some time at the Spy Museum. He'd been talking about it for months. So he did a lot of chores around the ranch to earn some money. But when he got there and he got to walking through the gift shop, he realized he didn't have enough money to buy everything that he wanted. He saw a lot of things he wanted to take home with him, but he didn't have the money. So he had to prioritize. He had to pick and choose and leave some things there because he simply couldn't afford that. Sure, was he disappointed? Absolutely. He was heartbroken. But I tell you what, that taught him a life lesson that he will only learn from people that have common sense, that understand you cannot spend money that you do not have, and you have to prioritize and make choices. America is out of money. We know this, and President Obama knows this. And yes, we do need fundamental tax reform. Yes, we need to identify our priorities. And yes, we absolutely have to stop spending money we don't have. Strong leadership, action, courage, along with responsible solutions are needed from all of us if we want to preserve the American dream for our kids and our grandkids. As a wife, mother, and a Republican woman, I support a balanced budget amendment, smaller government so my kids can grow up with liberties and freedoms, and so that they don't have to worry about paying the bills that we're continuing to rack up in this country. It's time to change our ways, and I certainly thank the gentlewoman for yielding to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. And, you know, it's interesting. We all have our stories, our anecdotes about our household budgets and what we're dealing with. My son is 16 years old, and he just received his driver's license just a couple months ago. But the deal with him is, Ben, you can't get a car until you finish that Eagle Scout project. And you're going to have to be responsible to pay for the gas that goes in it. Well, there's not a day that goes by here in Washington that I don't receive a picture that he texts me of the newest truck that he's found or the newest Jeep. But there again, he understands the deal. The deal is no vehicle until the Eagle Scout project is at least underway. And I'm yielding on that. I'm negotiating with him. But that's the plan. And you know, sometimes, as you said, We just can't have everything that we want. In a perfect world, we could, but we can't. Because when taxpayer dollars are being spent, it's not an endless flow of money coming into Washington that's from some unknown source. It's taxpayer dollars that we're spending. We have to be good stewards of that. And what better way to do that than the cut, cap, and balance plan that we passed here in the House just yesterday evening. It was so incredibly powerful to see those numbers up on the board, and to think that we could actually put a balanced budget amendment in place, which is basically amending the Constitution. This would be historical, a historic moment for us, and we'll be part of it. And President Obama will be the president that puts that forward for future generations. And I just, again, I'm so proud of it. And, you know, like I said, when you bring it home, we all have to deal with those budgets in our own household. Washington should be doing the same. I'd like to yield now to our vice chair, another member of leadership and just a voice of understanding, reason, and leadership for the GOP women, vice chair of our GOP conference, Ms. McMorris Rodgers. Thank you so much for coming to offer your comments.